All right, good morning. Happy Friday, Shadow of the Golden Dome. We're back with another awesome interview. I'm really excited about this one. We are joined by Tim O'Malley. Tim O'Malley is the Irish Illustrated senior editor and a 1995 Notre Dame graduate. You've probably seen him all over Facebook. He co-hosts the Irish Illustrated Insider podcast with Tim Prister and John Bryce, I believe on Mondays and Thursdays, and we'll get into that here soon. Uh, Tim, thanks for being here, man.
Hey, no, appreciate it. Thanks for having me. It's a
Thank
good
you
week to
very.
do
Yeah, perfect week to do it, right? You've got nothing going on at all.
it.
Okay, well, hey, let's start here because I know you've got a lot to do, and I really appreciate your time. So Notre Dame grad 1995. I always start these the way I do all of them, which is talk to us about how you chose Notre Dame, how you came to choose the school, your relationship with the school today, and did you grow up a fan of the Irish before you enrolled?
Yeah, I did. I grew up in South Bend, and my dad was he's a professor of anatomy at IU Med School on Notre Dame's campus. And so then he also taught anatomy at Notre Dame. So I grew up going to games all the time, and he was still there when he became the assistant dean and the dean of the medical school. But I was still there. He was still there through my college years. So he retired in like '07. So yeah, he was there the whole time I was there, and he's the reason we were all Notre Dame fans, really. So yeah, I grew up going to basketball and football games religiously.
Okay, so it was organic. There was no school for you. If you were getting into
No, there
Notre
was
Dame,
not.
you're
Yeah, yeah.
you're going to Notre Dame.
Unless you're talking like Pepperdine or Hawaii, there was no other choice for school. Would have been
Very,
the immature choice could have possibly crept in, of course, but
of course. No, you made the good one. Okay, cool. So you're with Irish Illustrated now. You've been there for a while. One thing I wanted to ask you about and let you expand on is kind of your career path leading up to the senior position at Irish Illustrated. How long have you been covering the Irish in totality, and kind of what were the steps in your life that led you to where you are today?
yeah, I think this is year 18 officially. I'm trying to figure that. Yeah, this is year 18, so you don't get any ceremonies for 17, 18, or 19, right? It's 15 and 20. So I think this is year 18. I moved to Atlanta. First, I worked for the Herald Palladium, which is in St. Joe, Michigan, nearby. Just kind of correspondent sports writer there. I did cover three Notre Dame games in '97 and '98, but then I moved to Atlanta, and I was an editor for two sporting goods magazines down there, actually, Sporting Goods Dealer and Sports Trend. I worked for Cushman and Wakefield in Atlanta as well, real estate firm, and then I moved back up here, actually for family reasons, and I got married a year later. But I actually very briefly, not very, was it one football? It was one football season. I worked with Lou Emoji and Blue and Gold. I had my own blog, Old School with O'Malley, and that was 2008 season. So I guess that would be the official start. But in 2009, I got hired by Scout Irish Eyes. Actually, as a transition, I replaced, not knowing anything about them. Now they're friends of mine, but I replaced Mike Frank used to own Irish Eyes, and Mike Frank started Irish Sports Daily, and I ended up being the person at Irish Eyes after that. I didn't know him at all, but he lived in my neighborhood for a while. He doesn't anymore. He moved away, but now I know all those guys now. But that was Irish Eyes, and we turned into Irish Illustrated on January. Or Irish Illustrated absorbed us January 1st, 2015, and people that were on the Irish Illustrated and Irish Eyes boards were very confused that morning when they woke up after the Music City Bowl. I do remember a lot of that going on.
How did how did you make that jump from Blue and Gold to the other company? Did they have an opening and you asked, or did they
Yeah,
headhunt you,
so I
or
was no, I got I think if I recall, I was part-time with Blue and Gold. I was also doing fantasy football writing. So part-time for Blue and Gold once you're not in football and basketball season wasn't doing anything, you know. So I did start in May, and if I recall, Dan Silver used to be the managing editor at Blue and Gold, and of course Lou Emoji. Um, they recommended me because it was a full-time role, so they recommended me to uh, Irish Eyes and Scout at the time. So that's how that started. Yeah, I mean, I was part time, so I really thank them for doing that because obviously, we wanted to work together at Blue and Gold, but I was part time and they would have to make changes and stuff like that. And boy, part time in May, that's not part time anymore.
yeah, that's not working.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you kind of brought it up, and this was going to be one of the questions down the road, but a good segue now. You've got Irish Illustrated and Blue and Gold, and Mike Frank doing his thing. What is it? Irish Sports Daily now,
Irish
right?
Sports Daily. Yep.
Um, Do you guys all know? I mean, obviously, you're all competing for subscribers
Yeah.
and but like, what's that network of guys and gals like? I mean, are you all friends? Are you all group
Yeah,
chatting? And
I think we are now more than ever. Because of the way the Monday and Tuesday interviews are done now. This does not apply to games as much, not at all, because everybody has their own things to do on game day. Because the way the Monday Marcus Freeman and the Tuesday player interviews are now conducted, there's never a moment that you are truly alone with a you can't like hustle and get more interviews. Like in the old media day, you'd have 40 people available. They literally bring out four people to talk to the whole group, plus the coach. So we actually kind of like work in Congress in terms of transcriptions now, which I know is frowned upon by some people on the beat, but it really does help because I need every word transcribed. So I think everybody's probably more, I guess you don't work together, but you're just in the exact same boat all the time. So you do kind of lean on each other a little bit. That would include the South Bend Tribune with Mike Berardino and Brian Driscoll at Irish Breakdown, along with the three we mentioned, Blue and Gold and Irish Sports Daily. So yeah, Tuesdays we kind of work almost as competing colleagues, and then we go our separate ways for the rest of the week. But it just proves it's kind of like the best way to get the words on a page, and then you make your own story. Of course, nobody writes stories the same, but it's great to have that transcript, and I'm glad I started the transcript chain. Actually, I'll take credit for it because it was. I just thought we're all sitting in the same room getting the exact same thing. Why are we all transcribing the exact five same things? So that's yeah, we know each other pretty well, and I think the playoff run last year really had a lot to do with it. ND Insider, of course, is merged with Blue and Gold now with Tyler James and Eric Hansen. But we were all, or almost all of us, on that playoff run together, that playoff journey where we're like, all right, I found this flight. If you want to get it, jump on the flight. I'll room with you. Not room with you. I'll ride with you, something like that. So we saw enough of each other 3 weeks in a row, I think, on the road. And of course, that was a special time for Notre Dame fans and Notre Dame reporters, where everybody kind of got a little closer. And then I think we are glad not to see each other for a couple months after that because you're spending every 5 days a week with those guys.
yeah, as you're telling that, I'm sitting here thinking like I'd have to imagine it's like a rising tide raises all ships. If Notre Dame's winning, you're all doing great. Like
Yeah,
your views are through the. I mean, your content's getting eaten up by everybody. And I mean, I can speak for me personally. Like I'm reading every article, like even if
right.
it's a different version of the same thing. Do you find if Notre Dame's not, I mean, we've got a lot of football equity right now. Starting 0-2 hurt that a little bit. But that being said, do you feel like when the team isn't doing as well, it's
Oh
like,
yeah.
yeah, I mean, the vibe
Yeah,
has got to be
yeah. The
radically
I
different.
think the joke was I won't give them away. Two people walking into interviews Tuesday said this was told to me. This is it. Like if they don't beat USC, this is the death march through November for because Notre Dame fans. I mean, the word spoiled is a good word to use this time. Last year they got spoiled by that, and the January run was incredible.
Yeah.
But once you taste that, you're not going to deal with the hey, they could finish 9-3 and play in the Gator Bowl again for a reprise of the South Carolina game from a few years ago. That just wasn't an option. And now, of course, Notre Dame would be guarding against an upset now at this point. They're a favorite to make the playoff now,
Yeah.
and if they don't, it's out of it's they tried. It's not like you
Right.
blew along the way. So, oh no, people know. And selfishly, people that go care at all about Notre Dame that cover them would much rather go to the Camelback Inn in Arizona or the Rose Bowl than they would El Paso again, even though it's pretty in December. You need to. There's a lot of that goes on as well. Your road trip matters at the end of the year, and last year there were 3 road trips at the end of the year.
Yeah, very cool. Well, let's get into the nuts and bolts just a little bit of about with Irish Illustrated and in particular the Insider podcast. Now, am I correct in saying you guys do those Mondays and Thursdays, or is
Yep,
it one
Mondays and
day?
Thursdays, almost all year now. We didn't take much time off in the summer. There was somewhere along the way in July where a couple of us were on vacation at the same time, and it was just like, all right, let's finally take a week off. I don't think we had a week off in about 56 weeks when we took a week off in July last year. And then Tim Priester was doing ISO podcasts for where he would be, it would be ISO as in solo
Mhm.
podcasts. Drew Mentok now does one, an Irish Illustrated Interviews podcast. And then I kind of put together the Irish Illustrated Insider questions and format nowadays on Mondays and Thursdays, and that's super. That's a it's a lot of fun in season because you have so much content possible to talk about. I mean, we get a lot of great questions now. We got to cut them. I always think to myself, could people please send these questions in May and June when we're as opposed to which Irish player the last 40 years you want to put on the team? Like it doesn't matter what I think there because it's not going to work. So, but yeah,
Yeah,
we really enjoy the in season and the rush of August podcasts are fun too because you're speculating about something real. I
right.
find that so much more fun than the spring. I know I've gone on record about talking about the blue goal game. Like I like the beginning of the spring and at the end of the spring. I'm like, all right, just get me to August because I can't watch the blue goal game again. Once I've seen it twice, that's it for the blue goal game.
Right, right. And I mean, you feel the anticipation building too, and there's
Yeah.
excitement. The message boards start blowing up. So I'm glad you're the one that kind of preps those because this was going to be a question, like a behind the curtain question. How much prep goes into those shows? How much of that is just you guys getting together on Zoom and just extemporaneously riffing? Or because I know you grab questions, and what's that prep look like for those
Yeah,
shows?
I do the prep now. It used to be Priester, but Tim on Mondays has Tail of the Tape, and then as it turns out, his weekly column is Thursday Thoughts. So I do Monday musings, but I do that later. So when I wake up in the morning now, I get the questions from the board. I ask for them on Twitter. So I kind of format it now. I pick the questions and the topics. I mean, the topics in segment one are pretty obvious. They're the topics that are going on in football, for Notre Dame football and sometimes other sports. But yeah, the questions I try to curate them to a way that'll be interesting for the listener, and they're not only technical football questions because I think if you're going to do 10 technical football questions, it could get boring. Obviously, if it's a big game, you're going to have a lot more technical questions on Thursday that you want to have to answer. Like if Notre Dame's playing Boston College, there's going to be some interesting questions in there instead of how can Notre Dame defeat the left tackle? How can Notre Dame? How can
Right,
Notre, but when you're
right.
playing Makai Lemon and Leonard Moore, and people are wondering is he going to guard him? That's something we absolutely have to deal with. I think you just got to be smart about what people might want to listen to when it's Miami versus what people might want to listen to when it's Tennessee State.
Right. Yeah, we don't the X's and O's aren't as imperative going into a
Yeah.
game like we are after the bye for sure. So more of a conceptual question here. For like diehards like me on the other side of the camera, I consume every bit of content and and again, like I said off camera, like really, really amped to talk to you because Irish Illustrated for me is my favorite. I love you guys on camera. I think your chemistry is great, and I just like the way you handle questions and you take a lot of them too. Not to take away from the other guys, they're all great too and very knowledgeable. But just for me, I like your guys' chemistry. You and Priester work really well, and John Bryce is great too, and the men talk in the fold. Um, so for me, I feel like you have one of the coolest jobs in sports. Travel around, you follow the team. Um, does it feel that way to you almost 20 years in, or does it feel like work? I mean, I know you've got it, you're a fan, you're a grad. What does it feel like in season? Is it a grind?
I don't think football season's a grind. I know a lot of people do. I do think the the there is no off season December and January now. Now I don't mean just because Notre Dame was good. I'm saying the portal. The portal has become more interesting to people, I think, than recruiting, which makes me happy because I was never a recruiting maven. I mean,
Hmm.
I look at all the film, but I don't really care until they're at Notre Dame, until they're coming
Right.
to Notre Dame. I know, and some people love looking at film like that. I like looking at college film a lot more. I would say the only weird part of it is right now when basketball starts because the start of the basketball season, and I'm not the one that's saying this. College basketball coaches, including Mike Bray, has said this in the past. Jay Billis has said it. College basketball needs a way to start the season that not the way they do it, where you're just bleeding into football season. It just you feel like I don't want to use the wrong phrase here. You feel like it's such a secondary requirement right now, as opposed to when February comes around and it's men's or women's basketball season. So I feel like the only time it's a grind is you're like, oh shoot, someone has to cover the November 22nd game for basketball. Yeah, oh my gosh, it's December 9th and we have your kids are going on break on the 17th and you have to go cover the basketball game. Yet football is still going on. They're playing IU in 4 days. Like at some point you have to prioritize it as a business too. Notre Dame's playing IU. Well, Notre Dame has a basketball game one day later or 2 days later on Sunday. How many people actually want to read that as opposed to more stories about an IU playoff win? So that's the only grind I feel. And then I make jokes. This is partly true. It's mostly joking, but it's partly true. The blue gold game is the least informative practice you will see for the spring because it's on TV now. It wasn't always that way. But in the last 15, 20 years, when anybody could just view it, any opposing coach or scout that wanted to, they can't show you what they're really doing. Like we see the Jersey scrimmage the week before and the Jersey scrimmage, which we did not really see as much this August. Those really show you what they work on. So the blue gold game grind, the end of spring is the only time it ever feels like a grind where I'm actually watching people play football because I'm kind of thinking to myself, they're just not showing us what we want to see anyway. Like you're almost falling for it. What you're looking at, you're like, this is not where
It's almost a throwaway at this point, right?
yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah.
It's a great weekend for kids still. I think it's a great weekend for parents to bring kids. I just don't think if you ever watch the blue gold game and say, well, this guy looks so good in the blue gold game, why isn't he playing? It's like, well, 'cause they put him out
Is
for
the only
kids.
way. So I think we probably both agree there's a ton of value there because it's great for kids and it's a great
Yes.
way for people who don't go to the stadium. They don't want to pay the ticket prices they can get
Right,
in cheap.
right.
So that's awesome. From a journalistic standpoint, would the only way to, for lack of a bet, to save it would be no, there's no cameras, right? I mean,
Yeah, no, that
is
would be it. That would be
that
it.
would be it?
That would be it. That's what the Jersey scrimmage is. You don't film the Jersey scrimmage. I was actually out of town this year for the Jersey scrimmage. I was actually out of town, but last year, sitting up in the press box watching the Jersey scrimmage, this was the first time we actually saw Jordan Clark really play, and we were all like, "Ooh, that guy's pretty good." Like, because you go to a spring practice for 20 minutes, and he might be nursing. Anybody could be nursing any injury, and you don't know that. You don't know why they're with the second team. Maybe they alternate first and second team reps every other day, and you have no idea. But when you see a guy play in a situation where the competitiveness is there, I mean, I know it's just the Jersey scrimmage. You get to wear blue and you get a better meal, but you put competitors out there on a football field, they're going to play a little differently than if they're being held back in practice.
Was 2024 the funnest season you'd had in
Oh yeah,
some time? It had to be,
no,
right?
no doubt about it.
How far
Absolutely.
back do you have to go to match it?
Well, I wouldn't match it because the
Yeah,
playoff run was unique. But 2012 was like a miracle dream field because they were just so far removed from contending for a title. I
yeah.
think people forget how fun that journey was. I know that the team was. People say the team wasn't fun to watch, but it was fun to watch an all-time great Notre Dame defense. It's just that the Alabama game just is sullied it so bad for people. I think looking back at it, um, and I think that season was just more out of the blue than 2018 was. 2018 was fun. 2018 might have been a better team. They just ran into it. Both teams ran into an all-time great team. Heck, Notre Dame ran into an all-time great team last year as well. I mean,
Right.
maybe not the Clemson Alabama level, but Ohio State was the best team in the country last year. Like we just because they lost
Yeah.
prior doesn't mean they weren't the best team in the country. So 2024 was unmatched. 2012 was shocking. I mean, we couldn't believe they were covering a national championship game the way that season started. They weren't. I mean, remember they
Right.
almost lost to Purdue.
Oh, we went what, three or four OTs with Pitt that year too, right? Wasn't that
Yeah, three OTs with Pitt,
yeah,
overtime with Stanford.
yeah,
Felt like they couldn't shake USC when they were much better because that's
yeah.
always the way it is out there in the
Oh yeah.
Coliseum. But yeah, it was. I don't think anybody saw the absolute. I thought Alabama would win. I didn't think they'd win like that. It was over. It was over so fast. You didn't get to enjoy any part of
Do you
it.
think that season doesn't get the do you think that season doesn't get the accolades it deserves because of the Alabama game and a lot of fans not realizing that was very much a David versus Goliath
Yeah,
situation?
I do.
100%, right?
I completely agree with you. And we still joke that if Kansas State just wouldn't have blown a game to Baylor, Notre Dame would have just handled Colin Klein in Kansas State and won a national title, and nobody would have talked about it.
I know. That is the discussion I've had many, many times. Yes, that would have
Even
been
Oregon,
much.
Stanford upset Oregon 15-14, I think, on one of those last two weekends. And I
Yeah.
know Oregon's better than Kansas State, but Notre Dame could handle Oregon. Notre Dame plays defense like Stanford did then. Notre Dame could have handled Oregon. Alabama was a different creature altogether.
Yeah, 100%. Okay, I don't let your eyes roll in the back of your head here, but I cannot have you on without asking a few things here, and I'm not going to get into the weeds. I want you to save your good stuff for your
Leonard Moore's
subscribe.
good. There's my answer. Leonard
There,
Moore's really
Leonard Moore is good. CJ Carr. I got a few things here, and then I got a lightning round, and I'll get you out of here because I know you're busy. CJ Carr. Um, Finish this statement. CJ Carr is or will be the best Notre Dame quarterback since.
since Brady Quinn. Jimmy Clausen's junior year was awesome, but I don't
Yeah.
think you could take Jimmy Clausen's career and put it up against Brady Quinn's career. Jimmy Clausen's junior year was fantastic. People forget it, but since Brady Quinn,
Would you say
he will be better than Brady Quinn.
he will be better than Brady Quinn? Do you think he throws a ball as well as Jimmy Clausen
I
did?
think that's the comparison is Jimmy
That's the
Clausen and CJ Carr. Yeah. And I think
okay.
they both threw a better ball than Brady Quinn. Quinn's toughness. I mean, the one thing you got to remember, people don't think about this with Quinn and Clausen, the physical stature of Brady Quinn
Yeah.
was so much greater than Clausen. Like you grab Brady Quinn, didn't matter. You grab Jimmy Clausen and it was a sack.
Yeah. Right.
It was,
Right. Yeah. Quinn he was built like a Greek god. I mean,
yeah,
that kid
yeah.
was a beast. So, um, okay. So Chris Ash, the early criticisms, were they warranted? Was it fan overreaction somewhere in between? And the second part of that question is, where do you see the defense today? And was the first two games an example of a coordinator needing to get in and see their kids play live? Where do you fall on Chris Ash now?
If you wanted him fired unrealistically, then you're overreacting. But I think Chris Ash was as much at fault as the players were in that. I think if you have to know what your players can do or cannot do better than he did for the first two games. Now, if they started with Purdue and NC State, it'd have been 2-0 and they might have looked great in game three against Miami. But I feel like that's what the spring was for. That's what the offseason for. That's what a very difficult August camp was for. Um, I think that he has done a very good job since. Notre Dame's rush defense is outstanding. They don't allow anyone to gain more a chunk game. They've allowed Taylor Green at a 54-yard run for Arkansas, their quarterback, over the right side. There's nothing else. There's no other run that's hurt Notre Dame. It's remarkable, really. I think he asks a lot of people in man coverage, and if you're going to get to Christian Gray, I'll explain. I think they have Christian Gray is the hardest job in the world opposite Leonard Moore. They ask him to run all over the field in man-to-man coverage. It's just really difficult. Ash has done a very good job since.
Yeah, I did have a question on that. We'll just roll right into that. I think for me, Christian Gray takes more crap than any kid I've heard in a long. He plays opposite Leonard Moore, who is an absolute stud.
Yes.
He's going to get picked on a lot, and it's just so funny as a fan base that it gets pretty nasty online there. And some of the criticism of that kid is it gets a little irritating, but you're not throwing toward Leonard Moore. And I mean, I feel like we're so fickle as a fan base at times. You don't think about the huge interceptions that kid's had. He's a little feast and famine, maybe, but
Oh yeah. Yeah.
you know, um,
And he
w
did not have a good day against USC this past game.
right.
I realize that, but I just feel like he's that's the system is difficult for Christian Gray. If Christian Gray went somewhere and played his senior year elsewhere, and they let him play a little cover two and mixed it in every once in a while, even at a program, a high level SEC program, he would have better grades. He simply would. Um, it's not the way Notre Dame plays defense. He's capable of it, and he's at this stage in his career, he's more capable of it than Dallas Golden and Mark Zachary, which is what people will say. Well, just play someone else; they'll get shredded too. Not everybody can be Leonard Moore and Benjamin Morrison.
Right. Yeah. And then I think that's the great point is we are a little spoiled with who we have out in the field. And Christian Gray is unfortunately the recipient of the heat, but
Very good, not great.
yeah,
Goes against some very good receivers with a giant amount of space.
exactly.
It's just not easy.
It's not easy. That's not easy. We kind of touched on this already, but do you see a scenario at this point where Notre Dame wins out and doesn't make the playoff? I mean, do you think they're in the control of their own destiny at this point?
I do. They had built up so much equity from last year. I Once they went from when they didn't follow the top 25, I was like, well, that's good. They should
Mm.
not. But when they jumped from 23 to 16 quickly, I thought, oh my gosh, this is
Hmm.
that never would have happened to Notre Dame 10 years ago. They'd have
No.
been lost forever. They might have been 25 and they'd have been 24, 22, 23, 21. Now I mean, they're not going to have a big win, but if they can go out and hammer most of these teams, they'll keep moving up. I mean, it's Vanderbilt's not going to always be the darling that upsets someone.
Right.
At some point you're going to be comparing schedules, and Notre Dame, you should be rooting for Texas A&M still, and I know it's hard to root for Miami as a Notre Dame fan, but I still think that's great if those are their two teams that are at the top, because then Notre Dame, there's no argument against Notre Dame. You lose by one and by three against a, let's say, top five and top 18. I just think that's a slam dunk for Notre Dame.
Do you think that this team, with a healthy Jeremiah Love Do you think that this team is built for for a run into December and January like we were last year? How do you feel there?
Yeah, as long as the offensive line could stay with Billy Schroff coming back by then, obviously, and you could stay healthy. You wouldn't want to get another offensive line injury. That's what happened last year
Yeah,
when they were along the way. Um, so injuries aside, normal injuries aside, healthy Jeremiah Love, healthy Leonard Moore. Um, every team will get some injuries. I think they're built for a run. They may probably have to play a road game though to
yeah,
start. That makes it a little harder. I mean, I use obviously a good team last year and a very good team this year, but Notre Dame wasn't going to lose that game. Notre
no,
Dame was not going to lose that game at home. If you played at IU right now, I think Notre Dame would win, but you'd be a little different, wouldn't it? I mean, what if you have to go down anywhere in the SEC to play a 5-8 game? Or
yeah,
I'm sorry, not or excuse me, it would be a 6-11 game
a
or a
6-11.
7-10 game. Yeah,
Yeah, I think that's probably that's an ask. That's
yeah,
probably a heavy
yeah.
lift, right? Yeah, it's a heavy lift. What do you think about our dynamics as far as the wideouts? I mean, you think we've added the dynamic players that we need there? I mean, and then on the other side of that question, where's Mr. Greathouse? How we doing there?
Yeah, as long as Greathouse returns, because they do need four. I know
Yeah,
you're asking a lot for Faison, Fields, and Pauling to never get dinged up to a point where they're not 100. It's a long season. Faison gets the ball a lot. He's involved in special teams. I think you need to get Greathouse back because the fifth receiver, Micah Gilbert, broke his hand. That's not an easy comeback either when it's midseason. KK Smith emerged and then he didn't play at all against USC. So obviously they don't fully trust him. The tight end, Eli Raridon's been great or very good, but then there's not anything else going on at tight end. I think you need Greathouse back. Obviously, that lingering, he's only played 4 games situations there. I do not think Marcus Freeman lets him stay on the team if he was an actual. I'm sure he had a conversation about I want to redshirt and go elsewhere. I'm sure that conversation happens with a lot of people.
yeah,
And he had 8 targets through 4 games. I would expect he would have that conversation and need to be
right,
assuaged. Like, look, we're going to get you more involved. Look what's happened to Will Pauling since. Like, I think they need him. I think they need a fourth receiver. The receivers are so much better than they were in 2022 and 2023. It is staggering, honestly. I think the receiving room was pretty good last year, but Leonard was a running quarterback, and CJ
right.
Carr would have found those guys a lot more. But man, Riley Leonard was not a. There's no such thing as a red zone problem with Riley Leonard, right?
No, absolutely not. Well, so I want to go back in time. One last question here, and then we'll get to the lightning round. If Jeremiah Love isn't compromised, do we leave Atlanta national champions?
It's a great question. That's an awesome team. I think Ohio State was still just a little better.
Yeah,
Um, their game plan with Will Howard running the ball, and he had never done it all year, and it was very effective. I'm not saying when you get that lead, you play a little differently on offense. Notre Dame deserved that comeback and had a chance to make it at 8, with down 8 with the ball, with one stop by Christian Gray. That's where Leonard Moore maybe could have flipped over and covered Jeremiah Smith, but he didn't used to do
hmm,
that, so that wasn't an option. I think Ohio State still beats Notre Dame, but it's a much better game. It's a way
yeah,
better game.
yeah,
They got on top of Notre Dame's defense, and you saw how good that offense could be.
yeah,
They were the best team all year, and Notre Dame proved to be the second best team, is how I would say it fairly. Um, would have helped a lot though to have Jeremiah Love. Would have helped
yeah.
to have this version of Jadarian Price too, where he's healthier and he runs harder than he ran last year.
Right. Yeah. No, definitely. All right, Tim. I appreciate your time. I got a little lightning round here, and I'm going to get you out of here because you got things to do. You got stuff to write. What is your favorite Notre Dame? What's your favorite spot on campus?
Used to be my dad's office. That's no longer there, so not that one. I would say the lakes. I like walking around St. Joe Lake the most. Trying to figure out. There's a basketball hoop by actually that'd be St. Mary's Lake.
St. Mary's
There's
would say, yeah,
St. Mary's Lake. There's a basketball hoop near Carroll Hall. Is my favorite place on campus.
very cool. Your favorite South Bend lunch and dinner spot?
Dinner is now Cascade. It's new, but I will say for growing up and history reasons, Sunny Italy on Niles Avenue was my favorite. Cascade's awesome. Cascade's really good now. Lunch, Uptown Kitchen was in the running in Granger. I used to work at the old McCree's, so I got to give a shout out to Villa McCree. But it's funny how the sandwiches are $9 more. They're the exact same sandwich now. But Villa McCree was one I enjoyed, and my own grill.
Your favorite stadium to visit and why?
my favorite stadium I've been to for a game atmosphere was Tennessee. It was awesome. It was awesome, man. I like how it goes vertically. It was so loud. The tailgating atmosphere is great. And I went as a fan. I didn't cover it, so I was able to be outside the night before and everything. That is wonderful. Covering games. I love going to Clemson, although we kind of have to stay in Greenville. Georgia is a one-time visit was probably the best. If you're trying to think of like repeating going back, Clemson's been a couple. We're gonna keep going back. I love the trip to USC, not necessarily the Coliseum. I like the trip to Stanford because it's serene. You just drive in and park and walk in. It's really nice. Can't even tell you're at a football game until you sit inside the football game at Stanford. So the West Coast trip is great. The best road trip of all, and this is going to sound like recency bias, the most fun I've had at a game and on the road trip and enjoying the people was Arkansas.
Really?
Yes, it was phenomenal. The people of Fayetteville were absolutely fantastic to Notre Dame fans. You had to find like the one jerk in Fayetteville if you didn't have a good time because they were great after the game. Remember, it was a noon game.
Yeah.
It was just the most welcoming atmosphere. Um, Good stadium. It was actually a little too hot in the press box. It's an outdoor press box, and the sun just beats down on you, so I moved up. But I love the Fayetteville trip. That's at least that's the most underrated of all the trips I can recall taking. I would say the one coming up this week would not, or next week would not be on the list.
Yeah.
Nowhere
What?
near.
I
Yeah.
think I already know the answer to this. Probably gonna be Neyland Stadium. But what's the loudest stadium you've ever been in, and what's the loudest you've ever heard in Notre Dame Stadium?
Loudest I've ever heard Notre Dame was Pat Terrell's interception touchdown against Miami in '88, or Zibikowski's interception touchdown against USC in '05. That place was going crazy. Recently, Notre Dame Stadium, the Ohio State game in 2023 was incredibly loud. I thought the Michigan game in '18, they did a really good job. It was such a humid night, the opener in
Mhm.
'18. Um, maybe when they started pulling away from Caleb Williams, USC 2023, there was some bloodlust in that crowd. That was
Mhm.
good. Uh, Loudest, actually, this is terrible to say because I didn't think it used to be that loud of a stadium, but it is now. The loudest thing I can remember was when Michigan in 2011, the first night game they ever had,
Mhm.
when they started coming back. That was nuts. And talking to the Martin brothers and Brian Kelly and some others, they all said that's the loudest place they've ever been. I never thought Ann Arbor could get that loud.
Wow.
The reconfiguration of the press box and stadium keeps the noise in. Um, that was crazy how loud that got. The worst crowd I've ever seen was Miami in '89. It was
Wow.
violent
Okay.
and awful and not fun. Like Tennessee was fun, Michigan was fun. That was not. So
I already know what you're gonna say, but I'm gonna ask it anyways. If you have to keep Michigan or USC on the schedule, is it USC?
yeah, it's USC because I've gotten used to not having Michigan. But at my age, I grew up a Michigan rivalry, not USC, because from fourth grade through my senior year at Notre Dame didn't lose to USC. So I like to say, what do I care, about USC at that point? Now, obviously, things change for people, and
Mhm.
if you're 10 years younger than me, all you saw was USC and Pete Carroll era. The Michigan rivalry was the biggest to me growing up, but now I want to keep USC. I'd
Yeah.
rather I'd rather keep the USC rivalry now. There's a distaste for anybody that lived in the South Bend, Michigan border that were Notre Dame and Michigan fans for each other. That was pretty impressive in the 80s and 90s because those teams just alternated winning so much.
Yeah.
And you started the year and it meant so much. But I understand the USC rivalry is more important than Michigan.
Yeah, the trip to California is cool. I mean, and
Yes, yeah, I
double
could I
dip,
could
it's a
never go
good
to Ann Arbor.
recruiting.
I've never seen Notre Dame win a game in Ann Arbor. As a kid, as a fan, as a sports writer, 0-7.
Holy smokes.
So probably don't need me to go back if Michigan if that game ever comes back again. That wouldn't be good.
So something near and dear to our group, because this group started from the Ireland trip. Is there any chatter anywhere about doing another Aer Lingus game out there? Is that even in the ether floating?
I don't think it would be the next one. You keep hearing something like Rome. Obviously, Mexico City keeps popping up as a possibility. Brazil has popped up recently that we've heard for Irish Illustrated Insider. JB and Pete both heard that. Pete Sampson. I would love to go back to Ireland, but I'm assuming you're 6, 7 years out again because
Yeah,
it
they
was
probably have.
2012 and it was supposed to be 2020. So you could figure since they played in 2023, you figure it could be 2030 range. So you maybe that. to keep the
Yeah.
interest up. I mean, the interest was so high in that 2023 game. It
Oh
was
yeah.
amazing how Notre Dame fans saw more people I knew in Dublin than I knew at home games. It was
Yeah.
incredible.
I was
It was remarkable, honestly.
yeah, the amount of folks that traveled out there was really, really amazing.
Yeah, and they were clearly all Notre Dame fans because when
Yes.
people are saying hi to you all the time,
Yep.
that means they're Notre Dame fans. They're Notre Dame centric situation. I couldn't get over how that was a great time out.
Were you able to take in that day when they changed that road to Notre Dame Street? Were you able to see all those people or were you at the stadium prepping and were you
No,
able to
we
witness
were at the
that?
stadium because we went and stayed at a hotel closer to the stadium to be
Okay.
able to work there afterwards. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm
But
sure
we
you saw the photos of everybody in Dublin walking
oh
the
yeah,
stadium.
yeah,
Crazy, man. That was
yeah,
just
yeah.
crazy.
That was a great time.
Yeah. Okay. Last one. You're a Notre Dame grad. You've covered him forever. Notre Dame fan. Give me one word or phrase to describe your relationship with the University of Notre Dame.
Family would be the one word.
Family.
Because of my dad, my sister went there. My mom worked at Holy Cross House on campus. My dad worked there for 35 years. So family would be it. I don't know if people ever. I just went into Monday Musings once. He's 10 now. He was 8 years old. We were driving by campus and he said, "Dad, I want to go to Notre Dame." I was like, "Oh, that's a good idea." And he goes, "Yeah, because then we can save money because I don't have to fly there." So it would not be monetary, however, if he goes there. So he thinks
Yeah.
we'll save money. I hope he goes to Notre Dame. We won't be saving money just because we skip on a flight somewhere else, though.
Yeah, definitely not. He is Tim O'Malley. He's senior editor of Irish Illustrated. You can catch him all over YouTube. I strongly recommend and suggest everybody watching this subscribe to Irish Illustrated. The content is great. Tim Prister, Tim O'Malley, John Bryce, Drew Mentok. Am I missing anybody?
Nope, Pete comes on our podcast once a week, but
And then
that's it.
Pete comes in a little bit from time to time to do a little cameo. They are awesome. The coverage is great. Tim, thank you so much for your time, man. I really, really appreciate you. And you have a great bye week, my friend.
And I should say, people probably knew Tom Loy, who's worth 24/7 now nationally, but Eric Thomas and Brian Alt do a great job on our recruiting as well. And thank goodness, because I don't cover recruiting. So I'm really glad they do a great job.
Very cool. Everybody go find Tim O'Malley on Twitter or X, whatever you decide to call it, at Tim O'Malley ND. Tim, thank you, my friend. Have a great bye week, man.
Hey, you as well. Enjoy the weekend.
Thank you, brother. Go
Thanks,
Irish.
man.
All right, everybody. Thanks. Bye.